this is all dirt, and that's Longview Drive, and it was dirt also. I asked one time, I wish I had asked more, but I didn't. I asked her, what did they do when it snowed? And they would take horses, probably 2 horses, and a big plow, and they would go down Longview along the dirt, and that's how they shoveled the snow off the roads at that time. But back here is where that was all cattle back there. That's where they kept the cattle. And that, like I said, I'm not sure of that shed. It could have been. This was all like bushes along here. Okay. And that's that must have been a wagon shed, but that was to the side of the house at the time. Let's see what else. Okay, now that's a picture of Michael's will. I have the will. It's over here, and that's the original. And that took so long to decipher what it said. I really wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it, but that's what the will I read to you. And okay, next one. Now this is the barn. The second barn burned, and Betty Shireman was there. And this is what the fire destroyed that barn in 1953 in October. And I just want to, read you a little bit of the article. I have a big one here. So. And but it says a 97-year-old structure on Almond Farm was lost. The stone and frame barn on Old Almond Farm, 2.5 miles from High Spire and a half mile north of 441, was destroyed by flames yesterday afternoon. Loss was estimated at about $30,000 by the owner, Richard L. Shireman, Sr. Mrs. Shireman, Betty, who was home alone at the time, and a neighbor, David Marks, who had been working in a nearby field, saved 2 horses, a tractor from the burned structure. All other farm equipment and the season's crop of hay and straw were lost. Mrs. Shireman was unable to say how the fire started. She said she and Marks battled the flames with buckets of water until the arrival of firemen from High Spire, Middletown, Oberlin, Breastwood, and Long. Firemen forced to depend on booster tanks on their trucks for water concentrated their efforts on the farmhouse, the roof of which was several times set afire by flying embers. And there were small fires around in the fields, too, that was just glowing all the time. The flames also destroyed a chicken house and a cinder block milk house that was adjacent to the barn. The fire started at 3:15, and firemen were still standing by until evening to make sure that the flames were out. And like I said, I have all these things here if you're interested in looking. And you'll also see Betty and Richard Shireman Sr. rebuilt the barn, in 1954. So those are the ones where they have a plaque that was on the side of this barn. And it said, built by M.C. Michael Alleman, 1857, destroyed by lightning, June of 1876, rebuilt by Joseph Alleman, September 1876, destroyed by fire, when you say fire, October of 1953, and it was rebuilt by Richard L. and Mary Elizabeth Shireman. That was in 1954. And they also put on there, honor the Lord with thy substance, so shall thy barns be filled with plenty. And that's Proverbs 3, 9, and 10. So I have these up here so you can see them a little bit better. Bear with me a minute, I got it in the pages. Excuse me. Now, we're at the farmhouse, Walnut Hill Farmhouse, with Betty and Dick Shireman. And the barn burnt. wish I had asked them questions at the time, but I didn't, mainly because I was a new daughter-in-law. But come to find out, people would stop when I was there, and some men would stop and want to go see the barn. Okay, and it was a barn to me. I didn't think about it too much, but they said it was a Gothic arch barn, which was unusual for this area. All I know is, you'll see pictures too, all I know is I love to go in the barn, and the rafters looked like the bottom of a ship, a wooden ship. And Gothic barn was built, they gave more storage area for grain and hay. There weren't any barriers there. You could pull all the equipment in if you wanted to, or you could have all the hay in. There's no braces or whatever they call them, cut down. You could put the equipment. And what it's made of, which was interesting, is made with glued laminated wood arches that are bent. They laminated these arches so that they would bend. And you'll see it's curved. It said and I always thought it was a great place for hoedowns, that's me, but you could have a party in there. And I was always amazed to go in there and just look at the ceiling or the roof. Let's see. So I have some other things. You have there. I'm not used to having something, but that's Sears had actually sold Gothic arch barns. You could buy the kits and have them sent to you, just like the houses were. And they had this Gothic arch barn in one of their catalogs of barns, which I don't have. I wish I did, but I did find copies of it, and I have them out here so you can see them. And they're laying here. Now, since the barn burned, they wanted to have another barn. This would be, I can't remember, this would be the third one. Yeah. This is when the construction of the barn that's there now, the Gothic arch. And that's my husband and his brother. Two boys, I imagine you couldn't keep them out of the construction area, I would think. But that's the foundation for the barn. It had doors in the front that faced east. And and this is how the structure, that's the boys again. And you can start to see the structure of this. It is amazing. Now in the basement, we had, of course, there was the huge post down in the basement, in the cellar, or whatever you want to call it, at the bottom of the barn. But there weren't any upstairs. And there they are, see the arches, and they're putting the siding on the barn now. And that's when well, it looks like all the structure's up, but they were starting to put the siding on this. But it gives you a good picture of the barn, Gothic art of the barn. Yeah, okay, that's when they were putting the siding on and putting the roof on. And of course, there were two little ones there too. And then in the back is where it was kind of banked. There wasn't any opening back there, but it was still banked. The front was, the drive up to the front of the barn was all banked up to it. Now that's the inside of the barn. Not the original, but that is as close as, that's the inside of the barn. You know, the arches and stuff. It looks like an upside down boat ship. But you can see the arches, you can see how the boards were, and there's a window and a door on the end. But there's no structure that would impede putting equipment in there. Okay. And there they are with the front, the doors, the big double doors are on, and the other doors and windows are in, and there's still two boys there. Okay. Now we're going to go to the house. I wondered why my mother-in-law would change the roof of the farmhouse. It was gabled. You could see where the gable is. Now this is the original gable. But they made it a hipped roof, and then the hipped roof was built underneath the gabled roof. That was built before they took the gabled roof down. the only thing, this was in 1960, and I love the old truck, but, and then they put up a fireplace for inside the living room. And I have a feeling that might have been, that area that the fireplace is, may have been where the fireplace was in the cellar. That's a guess, but it would stand to reason, you know, they evidently had a chimney there or whatever. And but that has the new brick. And you can see the porch. It was a wooden porch, and you can see the cellar. It was covered. It had, like I said, it had dirt floor, and then they put wood in. And that little building on the side. I am not sure what that was. I know there was an outhouse, but I have no idea where. But this was kind of interesting. Yeah, now that's another side of the farmhouse. But it amazes me that they built the hip roof. I get that right? Yeah, they built the roof inside the old one, and then took the old one off. Okay. And that's just another, I had all these pictures that she had evidently taken, and that's putting up the fireplace on the outside and inside. Okay. There you can see it again. This was the side of the house that was facing the barn. They considered the front was, of course, where the porch was. But this is the side that was facing the barn. And there was a little, you see the little window. I don't know whether I have that picture. Always wondered why there's a little window there. And that was where the fireplace was, the big fireplace in the original, in the kitchen. And when they closed that off, my feeling is that there was a little space left, so they decided to put a window in. I have a picture of when I was there, of what the kitchen looked like, and where you can see where this big fireplace was with the mantle. It had a mantle and doors on it. Okay. That's the support. This is in the cellar, and that's a stone support for the kitchen fireplace. I always wondered what that was, and that's finally how I found out what it was. But asking Betty, I wondered why it was at a fireplace. There it is. Now this is when I was there. Now you see the little window. I have a feeling the fireplace was between the door and the wall, or whatever. But that wall was originally there, so I have a feeling that was where the fireplace was, and they only had some space left, so they put a window in. Makes sense. Okay, so now here's these beams. And you can see the stone foundation and the brick, and these beams, like I said, are like huge. And they always amaze me. I think there's another one. And that you can really see. It was a tree, and they were trees, and they broadaxed the tops and bottoms, we'll call it that. And that's what the meat hooks are in there. It's a good sign of the stone foundation, too. Okay. And this was news to me when Ed Fox, bless their heart, when they bought the farm. I'll explain that later. They were tearing out the upstairs, one of the bedrooms, and they found, this was on a closet wall. I didn't, I saw it, and at Walnut Hill, and it says, it was written twice, John Duncan, Hummelstown, Dauphin County, 1856. So of course, I got to checking things out, and I wanted to find out who this John Duncan was. And I figured since he wrote things twice, he must not have been too old. But I checked in the 1850 census for Hummelstown, and sure enough, that was one of their workers that was helping to build the house. This boy, he was 18 at the time when the house was being built. They had it down in Hummelstown, and James Duncan was 47, His wife Eliza was 32, John Duncan was 12, and they had 2 girls, Rachel that was 6, and Sarah that was a newborn. So like I said, in 1856, he would have been 18. And I'm sure that's why he probably didn't like the way the first signature went, so he just continued on. And this was hidden. We didn't know that, I didn't know this until Joan and Ed, were redoing the house. Yeah, that's just another one. We wanted to save it so bad, but it was too fragile. We just could not. So I got pictures the best I could. Okay. Now this is one of the floors, and I wish Joan and Ed were nice enough to let me go in the house when it was being remodeled, and I was looking around, just amazed. But what got me, you see that was a tree, and you see the knot from a tree trunk, from a tree branch on that tree. So I have a feeling it's been broadaxed, maybe at least on one side, maybe 2 sides, and then just set in there. And that's some of the lath that with the mortar going. Okay, now let me think. Yeah, that was behind the chest. Post. Okay. Now, why the name Walnut Hill Farm came about, and I love that picture. After Richard and I were married in 1976, 1976, we were looking at land. Now, his mother lived in the farmhouse. We were looking at land in York County, and my in-laws found out about it, and they wanted us to have the farm. And we said, we're not going to take the farm. We will buy the farm. We were confident in that we were going to buy the farm. So we did, and they agreed with that, and with what we gave them, they built that little ranch house that's there on the side. It's beside it. It's a little ranch house. The Browns live in there now. That was where they went, and Richard and Betty stayed there until Richard died, and then Betty did. When Richard and Betty, I'll say Betty, Mary Elizabeth, were in their house, the new house, and of course that was a Richard L. Shireman Sr., and my husband was Richard L. Shireman Jr. We, for the life of us, kept getting all their mail, or they kept getting all our mail, because all they would see was Richard L. Shireman. So I mentioned to Rick, my husband, that I'd like to name the farm so we can stop getting their mail. So that's basically what we did. So we both decided on naming it Walnut Hill Farm. There's a lot of walnut trees up there. And so that's what we did. We named it Walnut Hill Farm, and we didn't have a problem with mail ever since. So that's what the whole idea was for it. Now we had Rick and I had 2 sons. Matthew was born in 1978. Excuse me. And wait a minute, I'm thirsty. And David was born there in 1980. And I was so excited that I thought, I got these kids, I have to have a big garden. And I had such a large garden for one person. And I had corn planted, and I have to tell you, that was the last time I planted corn, because it got what was called smut, and it just disgusted me, as people who know, I just couldn't take it. So that was the last time ever that corn was planted there. And we had chickens, and we had barn cats, and we had dogs. And, since Matthew had some problems with his coordination and movement, the riding for the handicapped was just starting up. So I thought, I love horses, which I have all my life. Mom and Dad had, when I was 3, had to pull me out of the window when we went by a farm that had horses. I was going to go to them. So in the bottom of the barn, which was perfect, I had 4 stalls built. And we had 3 horses, and one of which was an Appaloosa that I rescued. And we had a pony, which didn't really work out for the kids because the pony had different ideas about letting them ride him. So the one thing that was, somehow I came across Dolly, and she's what you call a babysitter horse. And if at Kunkel, I didn't bring any of these pictures, and I should have, but Dolly was a sweetheart. I dressed her up and take her and walk her to Kunkel School. She was dressed up as Santa Claus. She was dressed up as the Easter Bunny. She was dressed up as Zorro with the black mask over her face and everything. The Easter Bunny, she had ears and a tail, and there were some other things that I would just dress her up as, and I'd walk her to the school. And I got the biggest kick out of that, but the kids really, she was good. They let her, the kindergarten stuff, they were the first grade, whatever they had, they let her come out, and I said, she's fine. They were under her and pulling, they were everywhere. And sorry, I'm a little, she was just wonderful to have for kids. And I had her, and she's buried up in the field with some trees. So anyway, so there you have how Walnut Hill, that I named, is related to Reliance. And the thing is, my father-in-law, who was there at Walnut Hill for such a long time, and he knew about Reliance because it was just a dirt road at that time, he was telling us about all the fruit trees and the raspberries and the blackberries that were up there. We'd take buckets and we'd walk that old lane, that old dirt lane, and go back and pick these raspberries and blackberries. I didn't realize at the time that they'd been there forever, and Henry, one of the Henrys, had a whole orchard for them. I know when we walked up there, that first picture, his first picture I showed, that was in 1850. I know when we walked up there, there was some sheds around. There was 2 big wagon sheds across that dirt lane, across from the house. And there was a couple more sheds. And I think there was a corn crib that was closer to the house. It was across the road too. Which I'm so glad I got those pictures that I have. At the time, Rick and I could almost walk, well, we did walk across we could walk the fields at that time before Old Reliance. The development was there, and we could walk all the way down to 441 and Fully Mill, just through the fields. There was nothing there. There was some springs, but that's about it. I have so many good memories of it. In 2004, in October of 2004, my husband and I, when we were married, maybe I said, how you make a pact with your husband, your new husband. Well, we're never going to leave this farm. We never thought we'd get old, but we're never going to leave this farm. So, in October of 2004, suddenly, Rick died suddenly in the house, at the house. He was in the living room. So I realized after a while, after I got over that I couldn't take care of this farm that I had by myself. I couldn't afford it, for one thing, because I was working weekends and he was working. But I knew I couldn't take care of it. So the oldest son, Matthew, who's premature, he was diagnosed. We found out that he was diagnosed with cancer, and and I wasn't quite as young as I was. So we placed the farm for sale. I placed the farm for sale. It was my decision. And that was to keep the pact with my husband, who wasn't going to leave the farm, and he didn't, is I kept some land on the farmland in back of the house. And I had a ranch house built. And it's the good Lord, that's all I can say. For some reason, I had it in my head, I know it was for Matthew, because he would have needed help the rest of his life, and I wasn't getting any younger. But I had it made handicap accessible. In February 14th of 2006, I handed the keys over to Ed and Jen Fox. And they don't know how many people I had gone through, because I had to have special people that loved it, just loved the farm. And Joan and Ed showed up, and they loved the farm. Excuse me. So I kept part of the land, and I built a handicap accessible ranch house. And February 14th, 2006, I handed the keys over to Ed and Jen. Actually, I handed them over to Ed, and I'll never forget what he said. He just burst out in a big grin. "I'm gonna wrangle me some doggies."